Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Becca. If you haven't been here before, welcome. So today's video I tried to film yesterday and the light just kept getting darker and darker. I filmed it too late in the day and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start over tomorrow because I didn't want you to see the orange lighting that was taking over my room. So let's get into this video, part two. Well, take two. So this is going to be my 25 books that I want to read in 2025, books coming out in 2025. And I am going to put you on to some authors and some books that I feel like are not being heavily talked about in the book space, booktube, book talk, bookstagram. I tried to make a list of books that I was excited about, like genuinely, but that also a lot of people I didn't hear talking about. A lot of the books I've heard people talking about, and this might also just be the creators that I like to watch, but they've been very heavily focused in like the romance and lit fic world. And so I wanted to talk about some books coming out specifically in order of the ones I am most excited for to the, I guess, the least excited, but they're going to be in three categories. So, but I'm really excited for all of them. So, but I'm going to do the standalones, the continuation of series, and then a special last 5 books. So it's going to total 25. But the book that I'm really, really excited for, the most excited for, that's coming out in 2025 is Hot Wax by ML Rio. Now, ML Rio dropped Graveyard Shift this past year and then is also the author of If We Were Villains. And If We Were Villains is my all-time favorite book right now. And I think that not enough people are talking about Hot Wax, which is her next full-length novel that is going to come out in 2025. I'm really excited to get another full-length book from ML Rio. She writes beautifully. If you haven't read If We Were Villains, you absolutely should, but you don't have to read this in order to read Hot Wax. Hot Wax is supposed to come out on September 9th, 2025. And it is a book about a 90s rock and roll scene. It follows a band of rocker misfits, rivals, and trailblazers on tour that could have catapulted them to superstardom if it hadn't all come crashing down. So I know ML Rio is a really big into music and the music scene. So this is kind of like focusing on her love of that. She also is a big writer of ensemble casts. This one is multiple POV. I think there's maybe 5 characters. This one is single POV, but there are still a lot of different characters that like feed into this story, which make it what it is and make it as amazing as it is. So I'm so excited to see, I believe, another ensemble cast coming from her, and I think it's going to be amazing. I'm putting you on. Read these. The next book I am so excited for is Sister of Ash by Angeline Boulley. Now, if you know me, this is one of the books that got me back into reading. This is Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. She also released Warrior Girl Unearthed, which is like on the shelf above. You can't see it. Angeline Boulley is an Indigenous writer who normally focuses on young Indigenous women. So this book, Sister of Ash, is supposed to be published September 11th, 2025. And it says it's about a 17-year-old girl named Lucy Smith who's on the run. Years of hell as an Ojibwe child in foster care have taught her to be smart and cautious, but when a kind-eyed man tracks her down and shows interest in her case, she begins to wonder if things could be different. So it's about like her being kind of a runaway, trying to escape her past. These books tend to be like thriller-esque, but they have so much more in them than just being a normal thriller. Like, I've never read a thriller that makes me feel the way this book made me feel. And even though this book is young adult, which I think a lot of people kind of bash on, this book, it made me sob. It meant so much to me, and it taught me so much, and I just found it fascinating. So don't judge a book because it's young adult. Don't judge a book by its cover, although this cover is gorgeous. But absolutely, I am so excited for her to be writing another book. I did not even know until I started making this video that she had another one planning to be coming out in 2025. So I hope she does a book tour because I really would love to go to a signing. The next book we have on our list is It's Watching by Lindsay Curry. This is a little bit of a different book than the other ones I'm going to mention because this is a middle grade book. And just to give a little bit of background, Lindsay Curry is the first author that I read of middle grade literature as an adult. And I highly, highly, highly suggest that if you haven't, you begin to read middle grade literature. I think that it feeds the inner child. There's like a calming to it. Of course, you have to find the right story and series for you, but this is one of my all-time favorite middle grade authors. Lindsay Curry does middle grade horror, and she does horror really, really well. I know it's funny to say that because you're like, little kids, like how scary could it really be? I can tell you right now, if I was a child, when I was a kid, I could not have handled reading these books. They would have been too scary for me. So getting into horror as an adult and just wanting to have almost like more of a cozy horror moment, Lindsay Curry's books were huge for me. She is such a great writer, and I really love her stuff. So this one is a chilling middle school novel about 3 kids who discover who or what is terrorizing them after receiving an ominous meme on Halloween night. A lot of Lindsay Curry's novels do have the supernatural within them, but I love her books. I actually don't own any. I would like to buy some, but I love them. So highly suggest. This one's coming out on February 4th, 2025. So number 4 for next year is Wings of Starlight by Allison Saft. So Allison Saft wrote A Far Wilder Magic, and she's written a couple of other books since then, but A Far Wilder Magic is one of my favorite books. It is incredible. The magic system is amazing. The way that magic almost functions as a pairing to science in that book is incredible, but a lot of her books are kind of these like standalone fantasy novels, and I love that because it means that I don't have to commit to reading 5, 6, 7 books in a series. I can just dip my toe into that world and then step back and continue on with all the other books I want to read. Wings of Starlight is set to come out on February 4th, 2025. I think that's the exact same day as It's Watching, so that's funny. It says, brimming with magic and romance, a young fairy queen must form an unlikely alliance or risk an unspeakable danger, destroying all she holds dear in this standalone YA novel. I just think Allison Saft's writing is gorgeous. She dives you into the most beautiful worlds. Her description is incredible. Her like romance subplots make me kick my feet and giggle. So this is definitely a book I'm really excited for. The next book I've got on here is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is supposed to come out on June 3rd, 2025, so maybe a little summer read for us. So this book is about a woman in the 1980s. I believe she's a professor, and she realizes this dream of hers to become an astronaut and be on one of the, it says she comes across an advertisement seeking the first women scientists to join NASA's space shuttle program, and suddenly she realizes that she wants to be one of the first people to go to space. So that's what this story is about. I read Taylor Jenkins Reid's Carrie Soto is Back, and that book was so good. I gave it 5 stars. It had me bawling my eyes out. I don't know how. I just became so attached to the characters. And that doesn't usually happen for me in books that are more closely related to historical fiction. I tend to really stay away from the historical fiction genre. I get really bored. It is really hard for me to continue reading. But Carrie Soto is Back was so good that I had my mom read it. I was like, this book's amazing. You have to try it. And so now I'm putting you guys on. I know that Taylor Jenkins Reid is a popular author, and so this is probably a suggestion you've heard before, but I think that Atmosphere is going to be a great book next year, and I'm really excited to read it. How many times did I say I'm really excited to read all these books? Probably for as many books that there are. The next book I'm really excited about is called Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. This book is supposed to come out August 28th, 2025. R.F. Kuang is the author who wrote Babel and Yellowface, which I think Yellowface was the 2023 or 2024 Goodreads Choice Award winner for thrillers. And this says Dante's Inferno meets Susanna Clarke's Piranesi in this all-new dark academia fantasy. Two graduate students must put aside their rivalry and journey to hell to save their professor's soul, perhaps at the cost of their own. Catabasis, noun, ancient Greek, means the story of a hero's descent to the underworld. This being like a Dante's Inferno, but make it modern day story? Are you kidding? That sounds incredible. That sounds amazing. I'm so excited for this book. It sounds amazing. And I love a fantasy, but I also love an ancient Greek vibe. And I just think this sounds intriguing. And I know R.F. Kuang is renowned for her beautiful writing. So I can't wait. I literally cannot wait. The next book that I am excited about for 2025 is called The Bones Beneath My Skin by T.J. Klune. T.J. Klune is another author who is often in the Goodreads Choice Award winners / nominees. This book is supposed to come out on February 4th, 2025. There are so many books coming out on February 4th, 2025. I guess I'm going to have to go to the Barnes and just stock up on all my 2025 reads that day. But this is a spine-tingling thriller about a 10-year-old girl with an impossible power and an unlikely stranger who must come together to confront the dangerous forces that want her at all costs. And they say that this book is like Stranger Things. 10-year-old girl, incredible powers, someone who wants her for themselves, for their own nefarious deeds, wants to control her power. Yeah. That sounds like Stranger Things, but in book form. So if you are a Stranger Things fan and you are looking for the books and whatnot to get you through this period of waiting for the season finale, which when even is that? It's supposed to debut in 2025. So if you're looking for a book to get you over between the time of waiting for that last season of Stranger Things, this just might be the book for you. And it's definitely the book for me. And the other thing I love is T.J. Klune has these beautiful covers. I don't know who does their cover art, but all of their books have this very unique drawing style of covers. I know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but I'm a cover girly at heart. I love a special edition. I love a pretty cover. It's always going to pull me in. So I'm very excited for this new book. The next book that I am so excited for, and I know I keep going to pick them up. I don't have any new books, but I do have the author's old books, some of them. So this is Looking Glass Down by Catriona Ward, which came out maybe last year or the year before. And Catriona Ward is officially publishing Nowhere Burning. It is set to be published on October 7th, 2025. So the perfect time of year for a spooky read. And I actually met Catriona Ward at a book signing for Olivia Blake. She was touring with her and she signed this book. And I don't know if you can read that, but she said, "Dear Becca, lovely to meet you. Stay away from books." And then she signed it and she did a little drawing at the bottom. She was the nicest author, one of the nicest authors I've ever met. She was so kind. She was so inspiring. The way she talked about books, I literally went up to her and I was like, "You make me want to write a book because of the way you're talking about books," which is why she wrote Stay Away from Books. She was like, "Girl, maybe don't." I'm so excited for this book, Nowhere Burning, because during that tour, she was actually talking about this book and her writing process because this was the book she was working on at the time. And this is it is set in the Rocky Mountains, and it is about a refuge for lost children, which may also be their prison. In the middle of the night, Riley pulls her younger brother Oliver out of bed, and the two run away from home. Riley is intent on joining a group of teenagers squatting in the abandoned ruins of an infamous movie star's ranch, Nowhere. For actor Leif Winham, Nowhere was a place to hide from his fame and to hide his crimes. So this book is actually based on the Michael Jackson's ranch home, which he called Neverland. and it explores kind of like the nefarious exploits that like he was doing during that time with children and like the relations he was accused of having. And I think this story gets its basis from that idea and just expands it in Catriona Ward's own mind and like the ideas she has about it. Sounds incredible. That's all I have to say. The next book I am so excited about is With a Vengeance by Riley Sager. I'm surprised I haven't heard more people talking about this book. It is supposed to be published on June 10th of 2025, and Riley Sager is kind of a 50-50 author for me. I really loved The Last Time I Lied. I was okay with Lock Every Door, and then I really didn't like The Final Girls. But I'm really excited to read some of his newer books, and this one specifically sounds so interesting. It says, "One train, no stops, a deadly game of survival and revenge." And it basically says that in a long time ago in 1942, 6 people destroyed Anna Matheson's family. 12 years later, she's ready for retribution. So there's going to be some payback coming on this train. But I think the thing that interests me the most is this vibe of like the Orient Express I'm getting. Like, make it the Orient Express, but current day, and it's an Amtrak train from Philly to Chicago. I don't think it's actually an Amtrak train, but like that is the train that you would probably take from Philly to Chicago. So even if it's not said, make it Amtrak. And I just think that that's so interesting. I think it's gonna be such a fun book, and I really hope it like lives up to what is currently bouncing around in my brain. And Riley Sager just, he does a really great job. He writes some really great novels. There's a reason that he's always, you know, on the nomination list and one of the best thriller writers of this time period. But I just found it fascinating that I hadn't heard anyone talk about this yet. Like I said, I'm sure people are talking about it, but I'm so excited for this book. I'm going to try to stop saying I'm so excited because I'm sure that it's annoying. Because I'm excited for all of these, obviously. So the next book that is coming out in 2025 is While We're Young by K.L. Walther. This book is supposed to come out on March 4th, 2025. And the biggest reason I am excited for this book is because it says that it's giving Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and it is a whirlwind romance. I read a K.L. Walther book this past year called The Summer of Broken Rules, and I really liked it. It was a fun young adult romance that also delved into a young girl's grief around a death in her family. And the thing that separates K.L. Walther from all the other like young adult romances that I have read is the way she deep dives into these emotions that maybe aren't as openly discussed in young adult literature. Like, I don't know, she just did such a good job of describing the grief and like working through it with this character and not just making it this like bubbly, fun summer romance. It was a really good book. And so I'm very excited for While We Were Young, and I'm especially excited because it is set in Philadelphia, and that is where I live. So I love the idea of reading a book based in Philadelphia that I could go and like visit all of the touristy spots that they talk about in the book. A great book. The next book that I'm not going to say it. The next book that's supposed to come out in 2025 is called The Conditions of Will by Jessa Hastings. And the first thing that drew me to this book, as with all of Jessa's books, yes, I own them all. Never, I own her. Magnolia Parks, got her. Daisy Hates, got her. Magnolia Parks, A Long Way Home, got her. I own all of her indie covers because they are stunning. There's nothing you can tell me. These covers, like, this is an embarrassing fact. I've not read any of these books. Are they on my TBR? Of course they are. But did I buy them because of the glorious covers? And they were taking away the indie covers. And I was like, I must own those. I must. Like this one's my favorite. Are you kidding? So the fact that Jessa is publishing another book with a stunning cover, I was like, yeah, you got me, girl. I already own all your other books. Why wouldn't I also own this one? But this book yeah, I personally think the cover is stunning. And it's supposed to come out on April 1st of 2025. I'm kind of shocked that no one has talked about it because I feel like Magnolia Parks was such a craze when it first came out. People love the Magnolia Park series or they love to hate it. So I'm shocked that I haven't heard this mentioned anywhere at all. But this is supposed to be about a it says London-based Georgia Carter, professional lie detector and body language savant, has long been estranged from her infuriating, closed-minded, wealthy South Carolina family. After a falling out years ago, the chasm runs deep between the black sheep Georgia and her gay alcoholic brother, and their parents and older siblings. But when their father dies suddenly, Georgia returns to the States for the funeral. And basically she meets her brother's AA sponsor. They kind of have a thing, but she also knows that her brother, who she's trying to mend her relationship, also has a thing with him. So it looks like it's going to be a love triangle-esque, but then also a mystery because they're trying to figure out who their dad really was because all these like secrets are coming out after his death. The next book that is coming out in 2025 that I am putting on my list for a must read is Deep End by Ellie Hazelwood. Now I know what some of you are going to say. Becca, everyone's talking about this book. Becca, everyone has this on their list. And I get it. Not all the books I have on this list are going to be original or the first time you've ever heard of them, but I am genuinely very excited for this book. I read Check and Mate by Ellie Hazelwood, I think this year, and I gave it 5 stars. It was her first young adult romance, and I think that if I loved her first young adult romance, I'm also excited to jump into her first mainly smut romance. This is a book that she has described as being more like spicy based than some of her other novels. And so I think that I love when an author goes outside of their normal range of what is expected from them. Obviously, Ellie Hazelwood has written The Love Hypothesis and a lot of those like STEMinist series that focus around like a scientist, a woman in STEM falling in love with some man. And I haven't read those, but I'm sure that I will in the future. But I love an author who likes to jump outside of their comfort zone. She also came out with Bride this past year, which was like a sci-fi romantasy kind of vibe. And so I am excited to read Deep End and see what it's all about. This is supposed to come out on February 4th, 2025. I'm going to be at Barnes that day. I'm going to be there. Or at my local indie bookshop if they have these, because support local indie bookshops. But like this, it sounds really good. It says a competitive diver and an ace swimmer jump into forbidden waters in this steamy college romance. A college romance too? A college sports romance? Allie, this sounds so good. So I will be camping outside waiting for, February 4th and the day this book comes out. The next book I have on my list is Gifted and Talented by Olivia Blake. So this book is set to come out on April 1st, 2025. And not only is the cover pretty cool, you know me. So this is like a rival's story. So it says 3 siblings who, upon the death of their father, are forced to reckon with their long festering rivalries, dangerous abilities, and crushing weight of all their unrealized adolescent potential. There's a will, there's a war. So this is another like father dies and kids have to come home and kind of pick up the pieces. And I think that it just sounds really good. One of my best friends is a very big fan of Olivia Blake. So anytime Olivia has a new book come out, it's automatically going on my TBR. And this one sounds really good. I know her writing style is very unique and her fantasy style also seems very unique. So this is definitely one that I've got on my list for next year. The next book I've got on my list is Story of My Life by Lucy Score. Now, Lucy Score wrote The Things We Never Got Over, as well as many, many other books. And I actually just got tickets to go to a signing. She's touring for this book. So obviously I have to add it to my TBR for next year. I know that people love her writing. I personally have never read it, but I have a friend who is obsessed. So of course, adding it to my TBR for her, but also I just love the premise of this story. This book is set to come out on March 13th, 2025, and this says number 1 of the Story Lake series, so it seems like this is going to be a new series that Lucy Score is diving into. It says, all new small town rom-com. Hazel is given a 1-2 punch when she's forced to move out of her Upper East Side apartment and is given a final warning from her publisher. If she doesn't turn in a book by her next deadline, they're cutting her loose. She rashly decides to leave what's left of her city life behind and impulse buys a house in rural Pennsylvania, sight unseen. How better to entertain the loyal readers she still has and rediscover her writing mojo than immersing herself in small town life? So it looks like it's going to be set in a small town romance. Literally, what more could you ask for? Like, gonna be eating it up. And lastly, this book, which I haven't heard anyone, I didn't even know that this was coming out, but it's called Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. And this is actually a nonfiction book by John Green. He also wrote another nonfiction book called The Anthropomorphine Review. I believe that's what it's called. I haven't read it. So this is set to come out on March 18th, 2025. And John Green is the best-selling author of books like I said, Anthropomorphine Review, but also The Fault in Our Stars, Looking for Alaska, Paper Towns, books that you probably read when you were younger or like might have heard of. And I have read a decent amount of his books and I love them, but I've never read a nonfiction book by him. And I do have a goal to read more nonfiction next year. And if you know John Green, you know his constant discussions about tuberculosis and the way it affects people who not only are directly sick from it, but also like the world in general. So this says, a passionate advocate for global healthcare reform tells a deeply human story, illuminating the fight against the world's deadliest disease. And I just think that adding this to my TBR will be a great way for me to continue to encourage myself to read nonfiction because I feel like it's really important and it's something that I've been slacking on. But also, I think it'll be a great book. He's a great writer, and I will read anything John Green writes. I'll read his grocery list, so add it to my shelf. I'm ready. So those are the 15 books that are standalones that are coming out next year that I'm excited about. Now let's move over to the series continuations. So these are books coming out as series continuations, and I'm about to put you onto them if you haven't heard of them before. So the first one is Oathbound by Tracy Brown, which is a part of the Legendborn series. This one I have here is Bloodmarked, and the cover is stunning. And I actually have not read Bloodmarked yet, but I did read Legendborn, which is why I picked this up. I'm actually looking for the Legendborn hardcover, if anyone knows where I can find it. But Legendborn is an incredible book. It is a fantasy that takes place at a local college, a young girl who is actually going away to college early, like before she is turning 18, because she's very smart. She's Black, and she's talking about her experience not only as a young Black woman trying to, find herself at college and like connect to others, but also in the realms of this fantasy story. There's twists, there's turns, there's subplots of romance, there's possibly some sort of like love triangle going on. And the next book, I'm sure, is going to be stunning and amazing, just like the first two. So if you haven't heard of this series, here you go. Take it, go read. I'll see you in like a couple days when you're done with it. So Oathbound is coming out March 4th, 2025. And I'm not going to say it, but you know that I'm so excited. That is the first of the series. The next one that I'm really excited about is called Another Fine Mess by Lindy Bryan. This is a part of the Bless Your Heart series. And I read the first book in August of this year and fell in love with it. It's like a cozy horror book about vampires / zombies. And they basically come to this small town. They start popping up. This is about the first book, not the second book. They start popping up, and this like mother, daughter, grandmother, great-grandmother group who they basically run the local mortuary and like make sure that the dead stay dead. And when these monsters start popping up, they realize that they have to start doing their duties again and, you know, put these monsters back in the ground where they came from. So it is such a cute, like, family vibes story. It is horror, there is some gore, and the end of the first book had my jaw on the floor and me, like, tears in my eyes. So I can't wait for another fine mess to figure out what is going to happen next for this family. And it says it's a horror novel that combines mystery, humor, and heart, and follows the Evans women, who are the women I'm talking about, who have kept the undead from rising for many, many centuries. April 15th, 2025. Could not come fast enough. The next book is Brigands and Bread Knives by Travis Baldree, which is in the Legends and Lattes series. I read this book very recently. I actually have a reading vlog about it. I will link it up above if you want to watch it. But it is so cute, ultimate cozy fantasy, and it is about Viv, who decides to stop her life of, you know, adventuring, gallivanting, you know, stealing and gaining gold and headhunting, and decides to open up a little coffee shop. And she, you know, meets some friends along the way and they help her. And it is relatively low stakes, but there's definitely like a plot. Like, I thought nothing was going to be going on in this book, but there's definitely stuff going on. It's a really very cute read. And I do have to read Bookshops and Bone Dust, which is the prequel to this book. But I'm really excited for there to be a second book in this series. I don't really know where they could go with it. This says it's coming out November 11th, 2025. So there's still a ways, a lot of time to go before we get this book. But the fact that it's coming out end of November, cozy season, feels perfect to me. A high fantasy and low stakes, that's what it says. So I can't wait, and I'm gonna go in blind. I'm not gonna describe it because I don't want to give any spoilers, but also, like, this is very like slice of life, and I just want to be in this world again with Viv. The next book I have is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, and this is a prequel to The Hunger Games. I know that probably a lot of people are talking about this. I've already seen a couple people, but I couldn't not include this on my list because I'm so excited about it. So this is going to be Hamish's story. We've been waiting for this. We've been waiting for this one, guys. They have this marked so that, well, obviously we have the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I actually haven't read yet, but is obviously on my list, and I'm going to try and read it before I read this one. But Sunrise on the Reaping is going to be Hamish's story in the games, and we get a little bit of information in the original Hunger Games series about him, who he is, how he got to where he was. But I'm really excited to dive into like solely his life and experience. And this is like making me want to reread the Hunger Games, which I think is common for a lot of people. Like, these books came out so long ago, 2008, 2009, and like, I feel like a lot of my childhood revolved around the Hunger Games. So I'm really excited for them to like come back around 10 years later. And this one's supposed to come out March 18th, 2025. So you might catch me doing a Hunger Games reread. Maybe I'll have to do a little video about that. And the last book on my series continuations is Uncharmed by Lucy Wood. This is Rewitched. Lucy Wood is actually a fellow YouTuber who also does a lot of bookish content and actually wrote her own book. I believe this is just going to be the duology, so Rewitched and Uncharmed, which is coming out next year. But this is like a cozy fantasy romance about this girl in a small town, Belladonna Blackthorn, who hasn't lost her magical spark, but she hasn't seen it in a while either. Balancing work at her beloved London bookshop, Lunar Books, with handling her toxic boss and concealing her witchcraft from those around her, Belle is burnt out. Perfecting the potential of her magic is the last thing on her mind. But then her 30th birthday comes around, and it brings a summons from her coven and a trial that tests her worthiness as a witch. So it's kind of like her rediscovering herself, her in her 30s. I love a book that covers characters that are, you know, in their 30s. We have a lot of young adult and a lot of books with like people in their 20s. And I'm kind of getting into the era where I want to read books about like people in their 30s. I think there should be more about them. Your life doesn't end when you turn 30. There's more to it than that. It is set to be released on September 25th, 2025. And the cover hasn't been revealed yet, but once it is, you know I will be pre-ordering this book. I pre-ordered Rewitched, so I can't wait to get the second edition to go with it. And I think it's going to be a great fall witchy read. It's coming out at the perfect time of year, and I can't wait to see what Bella Blackthorne gets into next. So that is my 5 books that are in a series that are continuing, that where the new book is coming out in 2025. And then the last 5 books, and this may shock and horrify some people, but these 5 books are books I already own. I wanted to include this segment in today's video because I feel like going into 2025, there is a lot of pressure to read all of the newest books, all of the newest releases, to stay up to date with what everyone else is reading. And as much as it's very fun to read new books that are coming out, especially from authors that you already love, I think it's also important to note that there are hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of books that are already out there for us to consume that you very likely already have on your shelf. Do you really need more? I think that it's important to highlight some of the books that I'm excited to read next year that live right on my very own shelf, that are already out, or that you could get from your local library. So the last 5 books I have, number 1 is The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. This is a book that I believe I thrifted or found in a little library. I read The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle and I loved it. And Stuart Turton does really great thriller, complicated mysteries with twists and turns that you will never see coming. And this one is about Samuel Pepys. It's 1634. And the world's greatest detective is being transported to Amsterdam to be executed for a crime he may or may not have committed. Traveling with him is his loyal bodyguard, Aaron Hayes, who is determined to prove his friend innocent. Among the other guests is Sarah Wessel, a noble woman with a secret. But no sooner is the ship out to sea than devilry begins to blight the voyage. A strange symbol appears on the sail. A dead leper stalks the decks. Livestock dies in the night. So basically, you get it. They're traveling to this man's death, this amazing detective, and this detective stumbled upon a case right on this ship, right towards his deathbed, and he's going to figure out what is the devilry and shenanigans that are happening in this book. And the first book I read, 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, like I said, an amazing mystery, like so amazing that the first few chapters I had no idea what was going on because you're just dropped into the book the way the characters dropped into the book. And I'm really excited to read this. He also has another one that came out this past year. So I will be eating up Stuart Turton's backlist of books until he publishes a new one. It doesn't look like he's going to have one in 2025, maybe 2026 or 27, but he's already got a couple, so I am ready to read the backlist. The next book I'm really excited about is Significant Others by Zoe Eisenberg. I obviously have not read this book yet, but it is, I was really drawn in by the cover. I got this I believe I bought this at The Ripped Bodice. I think I got this at The Ripped Bodice. But it's about 2 women who have basically lived their lives together. They're not like romantically involved, but they're best friends, and one of them gets pregnant and the other one just kind of assumes that like they're going to continue to live this like coexisting life together as partners, and help her raise her child. And then the father gets involved, which I think is unexpected, and they're navigating their new relationship and lives as maybe friends who aren't together all the time. So I think it's going to be deeply emotional and maybe like hard and saddening, but probably very reflective and interesting. So that is the next book I'm excited about. Then we've got Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This book has been renowned for a while. I also thrifted this one, and it is about a woman whose husband dies, and she begins working the night shift at the aquarium, and then she basically becomes acquainted with a giant Pacific octopus living in the aquarium. And we also, I think, get the octopus's point of view, and yeah, it seems like he is part of the story, like almost like another POV, and it's their relationship and also what happened to her son the night that he disappeared. So that's like another portion of the story. So I've always found octopi very interesting. They're very smart creatures. And I think that it would be really fun to read this book. I've heard that it's like very good, emotional. It's literary fiction. So I think that this would be really fun to read next year. For some reason, all the books I want to read next year are blue. The next book I have, number 24 on this list, is All's Well by Mona Awad. I read Bunny by Mona Awad and was obsessed with it. It was a new kind of horror that I really had never delved into before, and I found it fascinating, the ways that Mona Awad writes her characters, the underlying messages that she puts in there, the way that even at the end of her book, you're asking yourself questions and wondering what the meaning of some of the things she said was, and you get to determine that for yourself. So cool, so interesting. A great book club book. If you are interested in reading Bunny, it's really fun to read it with friends to discuss it because it's so much going on all over the place. But this book, I believe, it says it's Miranda Fitch's life is a waking nightmare. The accident that ended her burgeoning acting career left her with excruciating chronic back pain, a failed marriage, and deepening dependence on painkillers. Determined to put on Shakespeare's All's Well That Ends Well, she faces a mutinous cast hellbent on staging Macbeth instead. That's when she meets strange benefactors who have an eerie knowledge of Miranda's past. So you can kind of see it's like this like complex story that has to do with a Shakespeare play that she wants to put on, as well as her own chronic pain and her addiction to painkillers. And it just sounds really interesting. Also, like the fact that we're getting kind of like a Shakespearean vibe in this book, very similar to If We Were Villains, which is my favorite book. So that is going on the list, absolutely. And the last book might, you may have heard of this. It is very old. It is not new at all. It is called Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. And I love the Jurassic Park series, the movies, the movies. I love them. I've always watched them. I find them comforting, which is kind of bizarre. So the fact that we have a book that started it all, I've decided that this bad boy is absolutely, it must be read next year because I love this series so much and I'm so interested to see what it originated from. And this is a series of a couple of different books. I'm assuming that follows a similar structure to the way that the movies roll out, but I don't know about the new ones, but definitely the old ones, the old original trilogy. And I think that this would be super fun and interesting to read. Definitely ancient. I got this at a used bookstore. Look at how yellow the pages are. So just because a book is old and is not coming out next year or this year doesn't mean that it doesn't have value or deserve to be loved. And I'm really excited to read some of these stories, both very old and old or less so, and just get into this next year of reading. If you don't have the ability to read the 2025 reads, read what's on your shelf, read what's at your local library. There are tons of stories out there that are so valuable, and I think we should give them a little bit more love and maybe focus a little bit less on just what's brand new, what's shiny and new, and give a little bit of love to the books that were donated to little libraries and used bookstores and the library, and just enjoy reading in general. So that is all I have to say for today's video. Those are the 25 books I am excited to read in 2025. Some of them brand new, some of them old. And I love you guys. I hope you like this video, and let me know what you are going to be reading in 2025. What are the books that you are looking out for? New and old, published and unpublished. And I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. I love you so much, and I'll see you next week. Bye!